program بالأحضان, a show as an accent for those without one. A lot of hope about Clinton's health. Now we have the choice of an infection. Somebody has an infection in the lung, the other has an infection in his brain. So here is America. You make your choices. Which one is going to run this country in the next 4 years? Away from this hobble of campaign rhetoric and all this personality and reducing election to just personality, and somebody say, well, I like Trump because he's nice, he's funny, and I can have him in my living room for 4 years. Clinton is not funny. This is how election really was reduced. This is a serious issue in this country, and we saw these images of police brutality, not just with the African American, now with natives, and with all the issue of pipeline there. And I was watching this attentively, and I saw the military and the police militarized with dogs and everything, and attacking the natives at their lands, and it really reminds me of the settler in occupied Palestine. And it is this white mentality of we have the rights, and the natives are really something to deal with and get rid of it. And I don't think the mainstream media have been covering this extensively, short of Goodman and Democracy Now! And some other, the Green Party presidential candidates visited there, and almost they've been calling for her arrest. Now we need to talk about this issue and cover it extensively, and find out more from the people who are watching it closely and actually suffering with this. Our guest today, Frankie Jackson, he's assistant tribe here in Wabbington, and is a local here in Minneapolis, and also in Minnesota they have other branches around the states. And also next to him we have Justice Wabasha. This is Wabasha. It's a very well-known Native American's name. And Frankie, and welcome.
Thank you.
Justin. It's really very kind of you to come down here and talk to us. And but I just want to warn you, next to us is the police. It's Bloomington police. So we need to keep it cordial. They bring their dog to our studio. That will not be a parasite. But Justin, short of these images and sound bites and snapshots that we see, this is one of the few conflict. It really brings alluded to a lot of problem this country has with the Native American, what they're going through. So take us through historically, or why this particular conflict touch, and heart and bottom of a lot of people beside the natives tribes.
I think this issue is nothing new for many of the native tribes who have assembled on the plains around the Cannonball and Missouri River. Historically, tribes have had to fight encroachment from major corporation and major development from the time our reservations have been established. So I think for one thing, that's why you're seeing such unity in the tribes as the tribes come together to tackle this environmental crisis. Why does it pull in more than just native people? Because we're talking about clean water. We're talking about water, which is the source of all life. Through a lot of the sound bites that you've seen and through some of the videos that have been shared, you've heard the term Mani-Wichoni echoed time and time again.
Which means
water is life.
Water is life.
Water is life. That's why I think this particular conflict involves more than just native people. Mm-hmm. That Missouri River is the lifeline for over 18 million people who share drinking water from this particular source. And so I think though this may have started as an initial tribal resistance, if you will, to this project, it's been real easy for others to get on board because not just natives believe that water is life. And
water doesn't discriminate against.
It does not.
You
no,
just
sir.
run for anybody and free. But the thing, it seems like this is really the essence of this conflict or struggle. It's water versus oil.
Water versus oil.
So who use oil and who use water? I mean, most people use water, but
Everybody uses water.
Exactly. And it's not just here; it's all over.
It's all over. We are all dependent on water,
Uh-huh.
and so I think that's why this has become a global issue now.
Yes.
This is not just confined to North
You're
Dakota.
right, and people are paying attention outside of the United States.
Absolutely, absolutely. And for many of the tribes, or the tribes that are fighting this in North Dakota, you have one of the largest and richest oil reserves in our country.
We have enough oil, don't we?
Well, I would think we have enough oil. I think this project is indicative to the greed that we see from the oil company. This is not a pipeline that is designated by the federal government. This is an independent pipeline. Like my friend alluded to on our drive up, this is the 1%. This is a pipeline created by the
1%.
rich people for the rich people.
But also, the government are the one running this project.
Well, the government is the one permitting this
see.
project. This is where we get into that real tough gray area as to whether or not the lead federal agencies, which in this case, which is the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, if they have complied with all of the federal laws and regulations,
permits and all of
with
that.
the permits, but furthermore than just the permits, if they've complied with federal law, which mandates meaningful consultation between the tribes. And I think this is where you're finding the most resistance and the pushback from the Missouri River tribes and the surrounding tribes, is because they do not feel like they've been adequately consulted on this project.
And this is really the culture hot buttons. I mean, I know the reality is water versus oil and 1% versus, but also it's been always the complaint of the tribe that they never, they don't have the representation. They set aside a reservation and that they make those 1% making decision for them.
It is. It's politics. It speaks to the heart of the issue. I think with the president stepping in and 3 of the federal agencies stepping in and saying we need to consult with tribes, we need to look at reforming how we consult with tribes, speaks to the larger issue. Tribes are not consulted adequately when it comes to projects like this. This particular pipeline was scheduled to cross the Missouri River just above Bismarck, North Dakota, which is the capital of North Dakota. The decision to move that south was made because they thought that this had the high potential to contaminate Bismarck's drinking water. So you move it 50 miles south or a little less than...
Tell me, as a local tribe here, what's the relationship between your tribe and other tribe on that issue?
Well, like Frankie touched on, I mean, it's a worldwide issue. It's just not local tribes. I mean, we stand together. I mean, as Native people, it's always been our job to protect Mother Earth. And I mean, the ramifications of this pipeline were to break. I mean, it's just an environmental issue. It's a water issue, and it's.
So what's the logistic? You guys, there is like a group, the umbrella that consolidate effort and make sure people are on the same page, or this is just everybody, every tribe, every group, they just
well, the main group heading it up would be the Standing Rock Reservation in North Dakota.
Okay.
And we're kind of following their lead, and it's a peaceful, nonviolent prayer of resistance to the pipeline. So we're kind of following the lead of Standing Rock Reservation. And
so you're true still to the value of first peaceful, and also something you alluded to, Mother Earth.
Exactly.
Which is a very alien concept to a lot of 1% white corporate. The idea that we have to control the earth, we have to and you have to, you look at it different. Your relationship with the earth is a little bit different.
Exactly. As Native Americans, the word is Unchi Maka. I mean, Mother Earth. So that's where we all come from, and for her to be desecrated like this is pretty much the main reason why we're standing up. So it's not a protest of hate or nothing like that, but out of love for Mother Earth.
And frankly, do you think also the culture component is part of this, the class of culture and how people look at things? Because there's a lot of people, when you look at the social media and people reacting, they couldn't go there. A lot of people, support the pipeline, and they think, it's going to benefit and all of that. This tiring argument about modern life and development and all of that. So a lot of people are informed here about, the culture component, what you guys stand for.
I think so. I think another great conversation that Justice and I were having on our drive up here, we were talking about our cultural connection. And Justice made a great reference. He's a pipe carrier. He carries a chanupa, a pipe, and he prays for the people. And every time he fills that pipe, he gives those offerings to thank the Creator for this wonderful earth that we have been given. So from time immemorial, this is part of who we are as people. It's in our songs. It's in our language. And it goes back to who we are as people. And it speaks to the stewardship that we accept readily as Native people to take care of the natural surroundings that we were blessed with. There is definitely a cultural connect when you talk about corporations who have no concept of our connection to Mother Earth. So I think there's a tremendously huge disconnect when we're trying to relay that message. And when you don't have informed media on the site covering this, or you have biased media, it's very easy to have mixed messages coming from this incident. But the one thing that is very clear is that the potential environmental degradation that this pipeline could have should a leak take place, and it's not a matter of if a leak will take place, it's when a leak will take place. We know that as a matter of fact just from watching all of the other oil development in North Dakota. North Dakota's had over 300 oil spills in the last 5 years, and these have been virtually unreported. And so you have some frontline warriors in North Dakota and around the country supporting them to say, we need to slow down and think about the footprint we're leaving on Mother Earth, and think about the future generations and how this might impact them.
And Justice, when we're talking about the alternative, the oil has been moving all over the nation some way or another. But
Yes.
I think you have the train, trucking, or all of that. And this alternative also has its own
For
risk.
sure. Yeah, for sure. But we're alluding to earlier about as a pipe carrier and the prayer that we make. I mean, at some time we have to stand up and put action to that prayer. And so I think that's what you're seeing here with this resistance of the pipeline, is us finally putting action to our prayer, and trying to do our best to protect the environment for our children and those to come. I mean,
And if I could just add to that, I think you're hearing a lot of the same echoed messages from those on the front line, and just people who care in general, that want to see North Dakota improve its current infrastructure to move oil versus building new infrastructure right now. Yes, there are hazards that come with moving oil above land. How can we incorporate the latest technologies to improve that? How can we make road safer from the industry trucks that are hauling oil? These are all things that, could you imagine, this pipeline project is $3 billion. Imagine if we would have put $3.4 billion towards improving the current infrastructure, or even investing in new technologies. You're definitely, you hear that voice of people wanting to see the improvement of infrastructure versus the development of new infrastructure.
And moving the oil under the ground, like in this pipeline, what's the risk is irreversible. Then suppose a truck, you can.
Absolutely.
I see.
Absolutely. Should the pipeline underneath this river rupture, we don't have a backup planet. This is the only planet that we have. This is planet A. We don't have planet B.
No.
And so you're seeing the people are called, they're calling these people protesters, but we call ourselves protectors.
Isn't it something?
And so you see the protectors standing on the front line to stop this potential hazard from happening.
Seeing this private security, they're not even federal.
No.
They're hired by corporation of some sort.
Yes.
This is like war in Iraq or something. This is like acting like occupying forces.
Well, and this is where it gets real messy. The governor of North Dakota, he has a vested interest in this pipeline.
Yeah.
He owns shares in this pipeline.
Yeah.
So this is where, in my opinion, you have that gray area. And you have no disconnect, and you have the governor who has militarized the state police against peaceful protesters, and no ramifications on the private security firm who released these dogs on unarmed protectors.
Even one of the images I saw, the dogs wasn't interested.
No, they were.
They really were not interested.
No.
It's like they were acting more human. Like why are we doing this?
Right, and some of the dogs, if you watch that footage, some of the dogs actually turned around and bit their handlers,
You're right.
which tells us that these are either poorly trained dogs or poorly trained handlers. I'm going to say poorly trained handlers.
Well, it's metaphorically, it really reflects what the problem is.
Absolutely,
Who
it
should be
does.
bitten, who should be. But what's your take on? You have Obama goes and smile and. He made some promises to the tribe there. Did he exercise some leadership on this issue?
I would say to an extent, yes. I mean, he put together a small halt of a small.
But
the
that
pipeline,
was after.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean,
I see what you mean.
but as Native Americans, it's nothing new to us to have the government turn their back on us, I guess you could say. I mean, they've broken every treaty they ever wrote with Native Americans, and I mean, so it's.
Well, yeah, we'll talk about bigger issues.
Yeah, it's,
I mean, it's really symbolically it addresses the problem that, or the, the bad deal that the Native American have received all these years. And did they underestimate the reaction of the people? Frankie?
Absolutely.
Very much
Absolutely.
so.
They did. I think Big Oil Corporation, the Moody County Sheriff, the governor of North Dakota, I think they all underestimated the power of unity, the power of prayer in this act of protection. I was standing in camp when we were less than 200. And you fast forward 8 days, and there's over 5,000 people
So
standing.
you've
in
gone
camp.
there, you've been involved there early on.
Early on.
So who first showed up?
Members from the Standing Rock Sioux tribe first
Okay.
showed up to start to occupy the camp on tribal land. Now, where the main camp is currently being occupied now because they overgrew the site of the first original Sacred Stone camp.
I see.
Across the river is the Red Warrior camp, which houses most of the current occupation, is on U.S. Army Corps of Engineer land, but it's taken land. That's taken land. They took that land from the tribe back in the 1950s when they built the dams along the Missouri River. And so that's the actual land that's being occupied right now, is original treaty land.
It's amazing the resemblance between this and the settler in Palestine and occupied land. They go and occupy more land, and then they build a wall. They build, fences, and always the fences or the wall or whatever, on the other land of the other party. And so that's how I relate to this issue. That's how I was moved and follow on it, and I saw the resemblance between this and the security of that occupied forces in Israel and what they've been doing with the Palestinian settler moving in, taking the land, and then they put fences, and then the reality on the ground have changed, and you cannot change that. But here, a lot of white folks, a lot of people first of all, they're misinformed or not informed about this issue. So what do you tell them to bring them to your to your reality there, or the reality over there?
Well, I think we all have to find a way to become informed ourselves, and there are several ways you can
Especially
do that.
now.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. But just becoming aware of the issues that are happening up in North Dakota. There are some people in jail right now who were arrested yesterday who are being denied bond.
Well, they ask of the Green Party is head of the jail. I mean, they were asking for her arrest. You can run campaign when you are in jail.
I think that's the wonderful thing about what's transpired in the last week with the presidential nominee having a warrant issued for her arrest.
Yeah.
For the
What did she
Democracy
do? She
Now!
went to
She went and spray painted
Yeah.
the front end of some heavy
Yeah, I
equipment
know.
that was there.
So what's the crime? Bad
Vandalism.
taste?
Vandalism.
Bad taste.
Vandalism.
Yeah.
Not artistically acceptable to sensitivity of middle class, or what?
Vandalism, but I think on a serious note, what really needs to be understood is that on September 2nd, Tim Mentz, who is a renowned cultural resource specialist for the Standing Rock Sioux tribe, because of the jurisdictional differences along this route, on September 2nd, Tim Mentz did a preliminary survey of a portion of this pipeline on the east or on the west end of the road. Quite a few archaeological resources were identified. You got to keep in mind the tribes have occupied this land forever, so they're very familiar with the cultural resources that are there, even if it's not on tribal land.
Yeah.
It's checkerboarded, but
Yeah.
they know where these cultural resources
It's
are.
Same area.
Same area.
Yeah.
And so Tim submitted his findings to the court on a Friday. This is Memorial Weekend. On Saturday, the oil industry has armed security with their dogs guarding the road, and they have the heavy machine operators bulldozing these cultural resources. The day
it's
after.
it's like getting rid of evidence.
Get rid of the evidence. If it's not there, it's not a problem. And so that's why you've seen that act of resistance that day that the protesters actually crossed that fence, because the bulldozers were destroying and desecrating sites of significance.
Yes.
Great significance. Some of those rock effigies that were destroyed we'll never see again in our lifetime. And they have direct correlation to who we are as Dakota people. These speak to us about some of our prayer spots, some of our burial spots in this particular area. And so this is why you're seeing that outward act of resistance now. You're seeing...
It's really amazing what you just describing now.
Yeah.
You know, we have this football player who sat in a national anthem between two local teams, which is silly to have a national anthem played during local games, whatever. And they've been accusing of all sorts of things.
Sure.
The flag is sacred and all of that. And here is a history, here is a reality, been bulldozed off, and we're not having this conversation.
Yeah, it's a travesty, and this is at the heart of the discrepancy for this. Now, when the tribes were asking to participate, they wanted to be participating partners. They
Isn't
did
that
not,
democracy?
You would think it would be, and these are the federal laws that allow for inclusions, allow tribes to have a seat at the table when it comes to identifying these cultural resources. The tribes wanted to be participating partners. They did not want to be review partners, meaning your non-native archeologist goes out in the field, misses and
Does whatever he believes.
misinterprets all of these wonderful resources that we have. So the tribes were asking to be part of that cultural resource review, which is actually part of the NEPA process, and there's federal law that allows tribes to have a voice at that table. This is what's at the heart of the discrepancy for the Standing Rock Sioux tribe. telling the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers that you failed in your fiduciary responsibility to consult with tribes. You did not come to the table in a meaningful way.
It's an amazing and interesting that the tribe, the native tribes, teaching our government and our official democracy and teaching us how we run our country the way we actually pretend
Yeah.
that we, democracy and all of that. Well, thank you so much, Justin. Thank you so much. It's great. Well, good luck with your this, and I think we're going to be on the top of this and cover it until a resolution that's satisfactory to all parties involved, and the people who are involved the most are the tribes who live there, know the area, and they relate to this area, to this land, more strongly and more soundly than anybody else who comes from outside of the state to march and try to mess with this. And so we'll see you tomorrow, next week. Assalamu alaikum, and God bless you all.